There is a remarkable transformation that takes place within a woman when she finally decides that her peace, her direction and her worth will come from Allah alone. A softness begins to return to her heart, softness that life may have taken away from her. The noise of the world no longer pulls her in every direction, because she now recognizes that the only voice she truly needs to follow is the one who has never disappointed her. She starts to understand that choosing Allah first is not an act of sacrifice, but an act of liberation. And as this shift takes root, her life quietly rearranges itself around her new priorities. She stops chasing what drains her and begins embracing what strengthens her. She feels supported in ways she never felt before. The burdens she carried silently begin to lighten, not because everything around her changed, but because her heart learned where to rest. Allah places a calm inside her that cannot be shaken by people, by circumstances, or by uncertainty. When a woman turns to Him wholeheartedly, He rewrites her story with wisdom, surrounds her with protection, and fills her future with a beauty that only He can create. When a woman finally directs her heart toward Allah with sincerity, a quiet transformation begins within her. The confusion that once clouded her mind starts to fade, replaced by a sense of direction she didn't know she was missing. She begins to see life through a clearer lens, recognizing that closeness to her Creator is the foundation she needed all along. That turning point reshapes her identity from the inside out. What once overwhelmed her now feels different, because she knows she is not navigating life alone. Her heart gains a new kind of strength, one built on trust rather than fear. Each challenge becomes easier to face, not because the difficulty disappears, but because she understands who is guiding her through it. Her faith becomes a source of courage that no worldly reassurance could ever offer. As she turns to Allah, the pressure to impress people slowly loses its grip on her. She no longer chases approval from those who cannot see the depths of her soul. She learns that dignity comes from living with sincerity, not from pleasing everyone around her. This realization frees her from expectations that once weighed her down heavily. Her priorities begin shifting in the most beautiful way. She places her spiritual health above the noise of the world, knowing that a heart connected to Allah is far more valuable than anything temporary. She becomes more selective with her time, her words, and her relationships. Her worth grows effortlessly because she bases it on something eternal. Turning to Allah also awakens a calmness she never felt before. Instead of reacting impulsively, she pauses, reflects, and responds with wisdom. This emotional refinement is a blessing from her Creator, who strengthens her through patience and insight. Her maturity deepens, and her spirit becomes more grounded. As she grows spiritually, she notices how Allah protects her from paths that would have harmed her. A door that closes no longer frustrates her the way it once did. She recognizes divine protection in places where she used to see disappointment. Understanding this changes her entire outlook on life. Her connection with Allah teaches her to let go without resentment. She stops clinging to what was never meant to stay. She learns that release can be an act of worship, a way of trusting that what leaves her life is replaced by something better. This trust becomes the foundation of her emotional resilience. Her heart becomes more sensitive to goodness. Acts of kindness, honesty, and sincerity attract her in ways they never did before. She begins cultivating qualities that elevate her soul, knowing that true beauty grows from the character she builds. Her transformation becomes visible in the way she treats others. The more her heart turns to Allah, the more she discovers the difference between superficial happiness and deep contentment. She realizes that joy rooted in faith does not depend on circumstances. It comes from knowing that every chapter of her life is written with wisdom. This understanding gives her peace even through uncertainty. Her journey changes when she understands that seeking Allah is not a temporary phase but a lifelong relationship. She becomes more aware of her own behavior, guarding her speech, her intentions, and her actions. Her growth becomes steady because it is guided by purpose rather than impulse. She begins choosing her steps with greater care. Turning to Allah also teaches her to embrace humility. She stops measuring her progress by comparing herself to others. She understands that faith grows gradually, in quiet layers the world may never notice. This self-awareness protects her from arrogance and helps her stay grounded in gratitude. As she continues to draw closer to Allah, she becomes a source of comfort for those around her. Her words soften, her presence calms, and her patience inspires. Her transformation influences the hearts of others without her even trying. This influence is not from her, but from Allah working through her sincerity. Her journey changes when she realizes that hardship can be a gift. Trials stop feeling like punishments and start appearing as opportunities for growth. She discovers strength within herself that she never knew existed. Through every test, she learns that Allah is shaping her into someone stronger, wiser, and more resilient. She begins to recognize the blessings hidden in silence, reflection, and prayer. These moments become her safe spaces where she reconnects with her purpose and resets her heart. Her relationship with Allah becomes the anchor that keeps her steady regardless of what life demands from her. This connection becomes her greatest treasure. Her journey transforms because she finally understands where true success lies. It is not in status, beauty, validation, or achievements. It is in a heart that knows its Lord and finds peace in His presence. When her heart turns to Allah, everything in her life, her choices, her relationships, her dreams aligns with a deeper meaning. And that alignment becomes the miracle that defines her transformation. When a woman allows her faith to guide her before anything else, the structure of her entire life begins to shift in ways she never anticipated. Decisions that once felt heavy become clearer because they are rooted in sincerity rather than pressure. She chooses differently, she responds differently, and she carries herself with a confidence that comes only from trusting her Creator. This internal shift influences every corner of her journey. Her sense of purpose becomes stronger the moment she starts walking with Allah at the forefront of her choices. She stops seeking direction from people who cannot understand the depths of her heart. Instead, she turns to the one who knows her story from beginning to end. This reliance opens pathways she never imagined possible. Her life reshapes itself around clarity rather than confusion. Allah begins removing burdens she silently carried for years. Worries that once consumed her begin to lose their hold. Her faith gives her the ability to let go of anxieties that were suffocating her growth. She realizes that serenity does not come from controlling everything, but from handing her affairs to the one who already controls them. This release becomes her freedom. As her faith leads, she becomes more aware of the environments that affect her. She develops the wisdom to step away from negativity without hesitation. Allah gives her the insight to recognize who adds value to her life and who drains her spiritually. This awareness helps her build healthier boundaries that protect her emotional and spiritual well-being. The transformation becomes more visible when she chooses patience over frustration. She stops expecting life to unfold on her timeline. She understands that Allah's timing is always better, even when she cannot see the wisdom immediately. Through this acceptance, her heart becomes more stable and her reactions become gentler. Her faith also teaches her to view losses differently. Instead of breaking under the weight of disappointment, she begins to see every ending as part of a greater plan. What once shattered her now shapes her. She discovers that Allah's reshaping often begins with removing what would have held her back. This awareness gives her the courage to move forward with strength. A woman whose faith leads first becomes less influenced by the noise of the world. She no longer feels pressured to fit into unrealistic expectations. She learns that her worth is not measured by appearance, status, or perfection, but by sincerity, integrity, and devotion. This understanding transforms her confidence into something pure and steady. With faith guiding her, her heart becomes more grateful. She notices blessings she previously overlooked. A peaceful morning, a sincere conversation, a prayer that feels meaningful. Each moment becomes a sign of Allah's generosity. Gratitude reshapes her perspective and softens her character even further. Allah also reshapes her life by drawing her closer to people who uplift her. She begins to attract relationships based on respect and sincerity rather than superficial connections. Faith becomes the filter through which she chooses companionship. companionship. This brings comfort, stability, and genuine happiness into her days. As her faith deepens, she finds it easier to forgive. Not because others deserve forgiveness, but because she values her peace more than holding on to pain. Allah gives her the strength to release grudges that poisoned her heart. This act of forgiveness becomes a form of spiritual healing that transforms her life. Her ambitions also evolve. She stops chasing goals that conflict with her values. She seeks achievements that bring her closer to Allah and enrich her soul. Even in worldly pursuits, she carries her principles with dignity. Allah blesses her efforts because they are driven by purity rather than ego. When faith leads her, she becomes more resilient. Hardships still come, but they no longer destroy her. She learns to respond with calmness and rely on Allah for strength. Through this reliance, she discovers emotional stability that no person or circumstance can take away. Her endurance becomes a sign of divine support. Allah reshapes her life by lifting her from places she once felt stuck. New opportunities appear. Unexpected ease follows her steps. Solutions surface where she expected struggle. This is not coincidence, it is mercy. Allah opens doors for a heart that sincerely trusts Him. Her inner world transforms too. She feels more at peace with who she is becoming. She no longer compares her journey to others. She embraces her story with gratitude, knowing that Allah is refining her in ways that only He understands. This acceptance becomes the foundation of her happiness. When her faith leads first, her life unfolds with purpose, grace, and dignity. Allah reshapes her heart, her relationships, her ambitions, and her future in ways she could never achieve on her own. And the beauty of this transformation is that it continues silently, steadily, and lovingly, guided by the one who knows exactly what she needs. A profound change begins inside a woman the moment she realizes that she no longer needs validation from those who misunderstand her. The grip that others once had on her emotions starts to weaken. She no longer fears disappointing people who add nothing to her spiritual growth. Instead, she finds courage in knowing that her worth is defined by Allah, not by opinions that shift with every passing mood. This shift frees her from constantly trying to explain herself. She stops adjusting her personality to fit expectations that never matched her heart. She discovers dignity in being authentic, knowing that Allah sees every intention and every quiet effort. This realization becomes the foundation of her newfound strength. As she distances her heart from people's approval, she becomes more confident in her choices. Decisions that once felt heavy now feel manageable because she makes them for the sake of Allah. This sincerity brings a calm assurance that no criticism can shake. She no longer feels the need to justify her path to those who cannot see her purpose. Letting go of approval also protects her from emotional exhaustion. She no longer stretches herself thin trying to please everyone. She learns that some people will always misunderstand her no matter how hard she tries. Instead of feeling defeated, she finds relief in knowing that Allah understands her perfectly even when people don't. Her relationships begin to change as well. She gravitates toward individuals who appreciate sincerity, honesty, and fear of Allah. Those who demand conformity or drain her spirit lose priority. This shift allows her to build healthier connections that uplift her rather than diminish her. Her heart becomes more selective, and this selectiveness becomes a blessing. With this newfound independence, she becomes more aware of her own needs. She recognizes when she is forcing herself into roles that don't align with her values. She understands that preserving her faith means creating distance from anything that affects it negatively. This wisdom becomes a sign of maturity granted by Allah. Letting go of approval gives her the ability to accept imperfections without shame. She no longer hides her struggles or pretends to be flawless. She embraces her journey with honesty, knowing that Allah looks at effort, not perfection. This humility strengthens her character and deepens her sincerity. She begins to value her time differently. Instead of wasting energy on winning people over, she invests in her relationship with Allah, her personal growth, and her peace. This shift in priorities allows her to build a life filled with purpose rather than pressure. She discovers that the most valuable approval comes from the one who knows her heart. Letting go of approval empowers her to stand firm in her boundaries. She no longer compromises her principles to maintain acceptance. Her silence becomes thoughtful, her speech becomes intentional, and her actions become rooted in faith. This integrity elevates her dignity far beyond what she once sought from people. She also becomes more resilient in the face of criticism. Words that would have broken her before now lose their sting. She has learned that people comment from their own insecurities, not from knowledge of her journey. Her strength grows because her confidence is no longer fragile. It is anchored in reliance on Allah. Her emotional world begins to stabilize. She stops basing her happiness on how others respond to her. She feels lighter, more grounded, and more focused. Her self-worth becomes tied to her deeds, her intentions, and her devotion, not to the shifting attitudes of people who barely understand themselves. Letting go of approval helps her recognize her own progress. She begins to see where she has grown, how far she has come, and how much she has healed. She appreciates herself in ways she never allowed before. This appreciation is not arrogance, it is gratitude to Allah for guiding her transformation. She becomes more courageous in pursuing what benefits her soul. Opportunities that once intimidated her now feel attainable. She trusts that Allah will guide her steps regardless of who supports her or who doubts her. This trust becomes a source of empowerment that reshapes her future. The strength she gains allows her to focus on meaningful goals. She seeks knowledge, worship, emotional healing, and self-improvement. She builds a life with intention, knowing that Allah rewards every sincere effort. Her journey becomes more fulfilling because she finally walks it for the right reasons. She realizes that detaching from people's approval was not a loss, it was liberation. She becomes her strongest self when she chooses Allah's acceptance over the applause of people. Through His guidance, she builds a life filled with dignity, clarity, and unwavering inner peace. That strength becomes one of the greatest transformations she ever experiences. The moment a woman chooses trust in Allah over fear of the unknown, an inner shift begins that no one else can fully understand. Her heart stops relying on predictions and starts relying on the one who controls every outcome. This trust becomes a shield that protects her from anxiety and confusion, allowing her to walk forward with composure even when the road looks unclear to others. Fear often magnifies challenges, making even small obstacles look impossible. But when she hands her worries to Allah, the weight she once carried begins to lift. Her steps become steady because she knows that she is not walking alone. She starts to recognize that her responsibility is effort, not results. And this realization brings immense relief. Trust gives her the courage to move toward opportunities she once hesitated to approach. She recognizes that fear used to whisper limitations that were never real. As she replaces those doubts with certainty in Allah's wisdom, doors begin to open in ways she could never have orchestrated herself. Her path gains clarity because her heart gains conviction. She becomes more patient with the timing of her life. Fear used to rush her, pushing her to act out of pressure. Trust teaches her to wait with dignity, knowing every moment unfolds with precision. This patience becomes a form of strength that reshapes her attitude toward delay, disappointment, and change. As trust grows, fear loses its grip on her decisions. She stops making choices based on what she might lose and starts choosing based on what pleases Allah. This shift removes confusion from her life. Her priorities become clear, her values become firm, and her direction becomes easier to follow. Her trust softens her heart toward hardships. She no longer sees challenges as punishments, but as steps designed to build her. This mindset transforms her reactions. Instead of feeling broken, she feels guided. Each difficulty becomes a reminder of Allah's closeness, strengthening her connection with Him. Clarity enters her mind because she no longer entertains every fearful thought. Trust teaches her to separate reality from assumptions. She learns to silence thoughts that lead her away from peace and nourish thoughts that bring her back to Allah. This mental discipline becomes a source of emotional stability. Her reliance on Allah also helps her recognize blessings she once overlooked. Fear used to distract her from gratitude, making her focus on what might go wrong. With trust, her vision widens. She notices ease where she once saw burden. She sees guidance where she once felt lost. Clarity grows from gratitude. Trust empowers her to take steps even when she cannot see the entire path. She understands that Allah reveals direction gradually, not all at once. This understanding removes her need to control every detail of her future. She learns to walk with faith and leave the unfolding of her journey to the Almighty. Her confidence becomes rooted in something deeper than abilities or circumstances. She knows that when Allah supports her, even the most unlikely paths become achievable. This assurance fills her with determination. She no longer gives up easily, because she believes that divine help can turn any struggle into progress. Fear loses influence over her relationships as well. She stops holding on to people out of insecurity and learns to release what harms her. Trust teaches her that Allah replaces every loss with something suitable for her heart. This understanding strengthens her boundaries and protects her from emotional dependence. The clarity she gains through trust also helps her stay focused on long-term blessings rather than temporary comfort. She becomes more conscious of choices that affect her faith, her heart, and her future. This consciousness guides her away from distractions and toward a life filled with meaning and sincerity. She begins to appreciate the quiet ways Allah supports her behind the scenes. Events start falling into place with a harmony she cannot deny. What once felt like coincidence now appears as careful divine planning. This recognition deepens her faith and strengthens her trust. Through trust, she learns to release the fear of failure. She understands that success is not measured by worldly outcomes but by the sincerity of effort. This mindset frees her from the pressure of perfection. She contributes her best and leaves the rest to Allah, knowing He never overlooks effort. Her emotional resilience grows stronger each time she chooses trust over fear. She becomes less shaken by unexpected changes and more accepting of what Allah chooses for her. This resilience gives her a calm spirit that radiates strength and inspires those around her. Trust also gives her a clearer understanding of her purpose. Fear used to cloud her vision, making her confuse temporary goals with meaningful ones. With trust, she sees where Allah has been directing her all along. Her journey becomes purposeful because her intentions become pure. As trust deepens, she no longer seeks shortcuts. She becomes willing to walk the path Allah sets for her, even when it requires patience and sacrifice. She realizes that shortcuts often lead to confusion, while obedience and reliance lead to clarity. This insight changes the way she approaches every aspect of life. Her heart becomes lighter as she lets go of the fears that once held her back. She realizes that trust is not just a belief, it is a way of living, a way of breathing, a way of moving forward without constantly worrying about outcomes she cannot control. The clarity she experiences is not a result of life becoming easier, but a result of relying on Allah more deeply. Her path clears because her heart is no longer clouded by doubts. She sees with faith, walks with courage, and grows with grace. She discovers that trust in Allah is the key that unlocks clarity, peace, and direction. When fear fades, guidance becomes visible. Her path opens because she chooses the one who never leaves, His servants lost. And with that choice, her journey transforms in ways only Allah could design. When a woman chooses to safeguard her faith above everything else, she becomes surrounded by a form of divine protection that is not always visible to the world, but deeply felt within. Her sincerity becomes a shield, her intentions become armor, and her devotion becomes a source of strength that guides her through situations she once feared. Allah honors every step she takes to preserve her modesty, her purity, and her spiritual integrity. Her heart becomes guarded from people who do not value her principles. Conversations that would have influenced her negatively lose their pull. Environments that once tempted her now feel uncomfortable. as though Allah Himself is removing her from places that may harm her soul. This inner discomfort is protection in motion, steering her back toward what aligns with her faith. She begins to notice that her choices shape the type of people who approach her. The more she protects her deen, the more Allah distances those who carry harmful intentions. Without her realizing it, paths that could have caused emotional or spiritual damage quietly close. Her dignity becomes preserved, not because she demands it, but because Allah grants it to her. Her prayers become her sanctuary. In her sujood, she finds the strength to say no to things that weaken her spirit. Each dua she whispers becomes a barrier against what would pull her away from righteousness. Through that closeness to Allah, she develops a clarity that helps her distinguish between genuine goodness and disguised harm. When she prioritizes her deen, she sees blessings in forms others overlook. Opportunities that support her values appear unexpectedly. People who encourage her to remain firm in her faith begin to surround her. This alignment is not accidental. It is Allah placing the right individuals in her path at the right time, ensuring her heart remains steady. Her modesty becomes a source of empowerment. She realizes that her worth does not depend on external validation or worldly trends. This understanding protects her from feeling pressured to fit into standards that contradict her beliefs. Allah enhances her confidence because she chooses His guidelines over society's expectations. Challenges still appear, but they no longer break her spirit. She sees them as part of Allah's way of refining her character. With each test she endures, she witnesses subtle forms of protection, strengthening her patience, deepening her resilience, and reminding her that Allah never burdens a heart without purpose. Her trials become pathways to greater strength. She also becomes more careful with her words, her actions, and the environment she allows herself to enter. This consciousness shields her from making choices she would later regret. Allah places wisdom in her thoughts, helping her recognize the difference between temporary pleasure and long-term benefit. This wisdom becomes one of her greatest protections. Her heart becomes less affected by criticism. People may comment on her choices, her modesty, or her boundaries, but she remains firm because she knows who she is doing it for. This firmness is protection. Allah fortifies her against judgment that would have crushed her in the past. Her confidence grows from a place of faith, not ego. Even in uncertainty, she feels guided. Decisions that once overwhelmed her now become easier because she seeks Allah's support before making them. That reliance becomes a source of protection, ensuring she is not led by impulse or pressure, but by thoughtful faith. Allah protects her steps because she turns to Him in every step. Her relationships transform as well. She becomes more aware of who nourishes her iman and who drains it. This awareness allows her to distance herself from people who would weaken her spiritually. The strength she gains from these boundaries shields her from emotional entanglements that compromise her deen. Preservation of faith becomes her priority. She experiences inner peace because she no longer sacrifices her values to fit in. This peace is a divine gift placed in the heart of every person who chooses Allah above worldly comfort. It protects her from regret, guilt, and confusion. The clarity she gains through her faith becomes a light guiding her through uncertainty. There are moments when Allah redirects her with signs she never expected. A closed door becomes protection, not rejection. A delayed blessing becomes preparation, not punishment. As she reflects, she realizes how many unseen harms Allah shielded her from simply because she remained committed to her principles. Her patience becomes stronger through reliance on Allah. She waits with dignity for what is meant for her without lowering her standards or compromising her character. This patience is protection. It keeps her from settling for less than what Allah has written. She trusts that what comes with His approval will always bring peace. She becomes more aware of the whispers that try to weaken her resolve. But because she protects her deen, Allah protects her from falling into traps that her heart cannot recover from. He gives her insight to recognize harmful influences and strength to walk away. Her awareness becomes a spiritual safeguard. The more she protects her faith, the more she feels Allah's mercy in her daily life. Her sustenance comes with ease, her decisions come with clarity, and her emotions come with stability. She realizes that protecting her deen opens doors to blessings that are far greater than any worldly advantage she could pursue. Even during loneliness, Allah protects her heart from despair. He fills her solitude with contentment, allowing her to grow, heal, and develop strength she didn't know she possessed. This spiritual nourishment guards her from seeking companionship out of desperation. Instead, she waits for what Allah will bring with honor. Her life becomes more meaningful because her actions now carry purpose. Every effort she makes for her deen becomes a source of ongoing protection. The angels record her sincerity, and Allah rewards her for choices others do not even notice. Her unseen sacrifices become seen by the one who matters most. Her future becomes brighter because she builds it with faith as her foundation. Allah protects her from paths that would harm her and guides her toward ones filled with goodness. Her deen becomes her compass and Allah becomes her guardian. This partnership transforms her life from within. And in all of this, she learns a timeless truth. When a woman protects her deen, Allah protects her heart, her dignity, her path, and her future. His protection surrounds her in ways she cannot always see, but she feels it in every moment. Her devotion becomes her shield, and through it Allah elevates her in this world and the next. When a woman begins to anchor her life in Allah, a gentle transformation unfolds within her. Her reactions soften, her patience grows, and her priorities shift from pleasing people to pleasing the one who shaped her soul. Her heart becomes calm in ways she never experienced before, because she has finally placed her trust where it belongs. She becomes more deliberate with her words. Instead of speaking to impress or defend herself, she speaks with purpose, kindness, and sincerity. This change in communication reflects a deeper connection with Allah, who guides her to speak from a place of wisdom rather than emotion. People feel this shift before she even realizes it. Her kindness becomes more consistent because it is no longer tied to how she feels on a particular day. She acts with compassion because she knows Allah loves those who bring comfort to others. This sincerity brings light into her interactions, making her presence soothing and uplifting. She develops a new level of emotional stability. The same situations that once overwhelmed her now feel manageable because her heart no longer depends on temporary sources of peace. By holding on to Allah, she learns to navigate storms with dignity rather than panic. Her calmness becomes a reflection of her faith. Her patience grows in a beautiful way. She is no longer frustrated by delays or unexpected outcomes. Instead, she sees them as part of Allah's greater plan. This understanding protects her from resentment and fills her with hope because she knows that what is written for her can never be taken away. Her humility deepens. Instead of seeking credit or appreciation, she finds fulfillment in knowing that Allah sees every quiet effort. Her ego softens, allowing her relationships to flourish. She no longer competes with anyone. She competes only with her own yesterday, striving to grow closer to Allah each day. She becomes more thoughtful about her actions, realizing that every step she takes carries weight in both worlds. This awareness encourages her to avoid harm, avoid gossip, and avoid environments that weaken her iman. Her discipline is not forced, it is fueled by love for Allah. Her strength becomes rooted in faith rather than pride. She no longer breaks under pressure the way she used to. Allah becomes the foundation beneath her feet, giving her the courage to walk through challenges that once intimidated her. People around her notice that her resilience has taken on a new depth. The way she forgives changes as well. She learns that releasing grudges is not a favor to others, but a protection of her own heart. Her forgiveness becomes a sign of her reliance on Allah, trusting that He will handle what she cannot. This softens her soul and frees her from emotional burdens. Her gratitude becomes more intentional. Even in difficulty, she searches for blessings, knowing that every moment carries a lesson. This grateful mindset brightens her character, making her presence feel warm and comforting. She becomes a person who brings perspective rather than complaints. Her decision-making becomes clearer. She no longer acts impulsively but seeks guidance from Allah before moving forward. This reliance reduces confusion and protects her from choices that bring regret. She walks her path with thoughtful conviction, trusting Allah to guide her steps. She becomes more selective about the company she keeps. She values people who remind her of Allah, who uplift her character, and who encourage her to grow. Her circle becomes smaller but more meaningful. This shift guards her heart from influence that would weaken her spiritually. Her modesty shines in a stronger, more beautiful way. It is not just about appearance. It becomes part of her attitude, her dignity, and her behavior. She carries herself with grace because she knows she represents her faith wherever she goes. Allah beautifies her heart, and it reflects in everything she does. She becomes more aware of how fleeting this world is. This awareness helps her detach from unnecessary worries and focus on what truly matters. She gives less importance to trends, opinions, and temporary victories. Instead, she invests in her soul, knowing that it will accompany her into the next life. She begins to prioritize peace over drama. Conflicts that used to bother her no longer consume her energy. She avoids unnecessary disputes, speaks less when silence is wiser, and protects her heart from negativity. Her serenity becomes a reflection of her connection with Allah. Her independence takes on a spiritual form. She learns to rely on Allah before relying on anyone else. This reliance does not make her cold or distant, it makes her complete. She becomes a woman who stands strong because she stands with the one who never leaves his servants. Her worship becomes more meaningful. Each prayer becomes a conversation. Each dua becomes a release. And each act of obedience becomes a step closer to the life she hopes for. This depth transforms her from within, giving her a glow that no worldly success can match. She becomes more aware of her purpose. Allah centered her heart, and now her life begins to revolve around intentional choices, choices that nurture her soul, protect her peace, and please the one she loves most. Her purpose becomes clearer with each passing day. Her character begins to mirror the softness of her faith and the strength of her convictions. She walks with humility, speaks with kindness, and loves with sincerity. Her transformation becomes evident, not through words, but through the quiet beauty of her behavior. The shift in her character becomes a sign of Allah's mercy upon her. When He becomes her anchor, no wave can drown her, no loss can shatter her, and no fear can overpower her. Her heart becomes secure because it is held by the one who never lets go. A sincere woman carries a kind of purity that cannot be imitated. She does what is right even when no one is watching, and she treats others with fairness even when she gains nothing from it. This sincerity becomes a silent dua, rising to Allah, and He responds by easing her path in ways she never expected. Her sincerity makes her dependable in a world filled with inconsistency. She keeps her promises, honors her responsibilities, and respects what Allah has entrusted to her. Because her intentions are clean, Allah blesses her efforts with success that feels effortless. People trust her because her heart is steady. She approaches her goals with honesty instead of shortcuts. She refuses to harm others for personal benefit, and this integrity becomes a reason Allah grants her a unique form of barakah. What she builds grows stronger because its foundation rests on truth, not deceit. Doors that remain locked for others open gently for her. Her sincerity makes her dua powerful. When she turns to Allah, speaking from a heart free of hidden agendas, her words hold weight. Allah listens to the voice of a servant who seeks only His pleasure. Through this, opportunities appear in her life in ways she never imagined possible. Her relationships flourish because she interacts with others from a place of genuine care. She doesn't manipulate, she doesn't pretend, and she doesn't offer kindness only to receive something in return. Allah places affection for her in the hearts of those who cross her path, guiding the right people toward her and removing those who don't belong. Her sincerity becomes her protection. Allah shields her from traps set by others, from friendships that would harm her, and from choices that would lead her astray. She might not even notice how close she came to a disaster, but Allah turns her away from it because her heart is aligned with honesty. Her work carries a different kind of weight. Even if she starts with little, even if she feels unnoticed, Allah multiplies the impact of her efforts. He allows her to achieve results far greater than the resources she has. This is the gift Allah grants to a heart that acts with purity. Her sincerity softens her character. She treats people according to principle, not mood. She avoids hurting others, avoids false promises, and steps back from situations that compromise her values. Allah rewards this with inner peace. a peace that accompanies her wherever she goes. She doesn't chase opportunities with desperation. She does her part with excellence and then trusts Allah to bring what is meant for her. This reliance removes anxiety from her life. When doors open, she enters them with gratitude. When they close, she knows Allah is redirecting her.